Welcome to the Relatable Oklahoma Realtors Podcast, the show that sets out to demystify the world of real estate. Whether you're a first-time home buyer, investor, or a realtor with years of experience, this is where real estate is discussed and explained. Join me now for our hosts, Stacey and Burl Stricker.
Hey, Clint.
Doing today?
Doing great. Thank you so much for doing this with us. We appreciate it. So welcome to our podcast, Oklahoma Relatable Real Estate. I'm Burl Stricker.
Realtor.
Did I say it wrong? I said
This is only like our 10th podcast. We'll get the name right.
We'll get the name right one day. I saw that you started your podcast.
I did. I just got it released. The first one went out today, and it was a little hectic getting it all put together and getting the first one out. But hey, it's out there, and the response has been good so far.
What's the name of yours?
The Colonel Clint Show.
I like it. Okay, so tell everyone, because we came back, from auction school, as you know, and they were asking why our certificate has Colonel on there. So you want to tell everybody where that comes
And by
from?
the way, you stole my question because I was looking at his website. I was looking at your website, Clint, and I saw on there, kind of sincerely or whatever, best regards, Colonel Clint Hunter. So that's a good question.
So what I've always been told, the story goes is back in the war times of like the 1800s and things, the ones that would sell the goods and things to the community, if there was any livestock to sell, if there was any type of food or things like that to sell, it was always the colonels in the military that did that. And I've always been told that's where it came from. So I assume that is the case. And that's what I've always gone with.
No research done on that?
I haven't.
I think it's great.
After 20 some years in the business, I guess I should, but no, I haven't.
I think it's a pretty neat deal. And I mean, it's real too. You know what I'm saying? It's not like we're just saying that. It's actually a real, honorary title. So
yeah, it is. And it's something that I don't know. I've always taken it pretty serious.
Hold on one second. Yeah. Sorry, just a second, Clint. We got a technical difficulty.
It's all right.
All right. Can we hear you now? I think so.
Yeah. Clint, you guys, everything good?
Hold on one.
Yeah.
All right.
Sorry about that.
You didn't, I don't know if you heard me say it, but we're going to teach you what not to do with podcast. So. I remember you telling us in class, by the way, you were one of our instructors at the American Auction
Academy.
There we go. American Auction Academy. And I remember you talking about that your main focus is purebred auctions. And then you raise purebred yourself. Now, how long has your family been in that business and kind of why that direction versus, like commercial cattle or that kind of deal?
Yeah, for sure. So my family, we've raised registered Angus cattle. My brother and I actually the fifth generation to raise registered Angus cattle. It all started on my mom's side of the family. And my great grandfather would have been the first person to bring registered Angus cattle into Dent County, Missouri, which is up around Salem, Missouri. Mm-hmm. And they were the first ones to do that. And it's just been a continuation since then. And, we don't live on that farm, but our family has continued to raise them since. And we still do. Our family does still own that farm up there in Salem, which I think is a pretty cool deal as well. But we do run some commercial cows, but our focus has always been on the registered Angus side. It's more or less, we talk about the genetics and all the background of these cattle, but it's kind of bred into us as well. With 5 generations deep of raising these, it's a lot of fun and we enjoy the Angus people, the Angus family. And frankly, I just really like Angus cattle. I like what they bring to the table for the whole industry from a whole of whether that be, their low birth weight, their mothering ability, whatever that may be, all the way through to the stocker where and packer, there'd be some of the highest marbling cattle out there. So therein lies the certified Angus beef side of it too. So it's sure been a family deal for us, and we really, really enjoy it.
So red or black?
We raise black.
I've heard that question come up a lot. You know what my impression of, and I used to work in a feed yard, by the way, but my impression, and they did mainly all black. But what's interesting about, like, my neighbor had red, and I'd go out there and they were the friendliest cattle you've ever seen. Like when you bring food out, they are just come right up there. You can pet them. It seems like red is a lot more gentle, I guess, than other cattle, especially.
Yeah, I think a lot of that comes down to environment and how those cattle are raised and how they're handled. Mm-hmm. I mean, you can go, like, when I would go up as a kid to my grandparents, and it was, I mean, my grandfather would go out there and he could rub on almost every one of his animals that he had. I mean, they were running 150 cows or so, and he could just rub all over them. And then, you know, now in the auction business, I go to multiple different places, and yeah, there's some places like that. And then you go to some places and, you know, you can't get real close to them, and, you know, things like that. So it's,
have you ever got into like GAP step 1 or step 4, which is like, step 4 would be like no antibiotics, no hormones, but also grass fed. Have you ever got into any of those programs or been a part of those programs?
No, we aren't in any of that. We don't raise, I mean, most of our cattle go right back into a purebred setting or to into a registered setting, or if we sell some bulls, they go back into a commercial cow-calf operation. So we haven't gotten into any of the all natural stuff or the no antibiotics or anything like that. So
yeah, I was real curious about that. I was trying to figure out that, you know, the feed yard that I worked for, that's what they did. They focused on those things. And I know that there's, you know, whether you're talking about registered Angus, I mean, and from your point of view, what would be the benefit in just raising only registered?
Well, so for us, it works well. I mean, we have a focus upon raising, you know, strictly registered Angus. And with that said, our focus is on raising show heifers at our farm. We want to try to raise as many show heifer calves a year as possible that we can turn around and sell to families with junior kids, and they can show them at their local county and county fairs. But we sell to a lot of families that they go on and sell or show those heifers at the state and national levels. I mean, for instance, at the National Junior Angus Show this coming summer, we'll have somewhere 14 to 20 head of heifer calves there that we've sold in the last 2 years. Wow. So that's our goal. We do sell some bulls to the commercial, some commercial breeders. We don't sell very many a year, probably only about 15 a year. But our big focus is on raising the show heifers. So when we're talking about the registered side compared to the commercial side, for us, I mean, it just makes sense. That's where our passion is to raise Angus show heifers and go on and help those kids.
And do you do that locally, or do you do that all across
Missouri?
So do you go outside of Missouri?
Yeah, we do. We have an annual production sale in April. This year it'll be April the 6th. And we'll offer 15 heifer calves. We'll offer 5 bulls. And then those heifers we'll sell into Missouri, Arkansas. I mean, for instance, last year we sold Missouri, Arkansas, Iowa, Indiana, Illinois, Oklahoma. So, you know, we're gradually branching out. We've sent a number of cattle down to Texas. We're gradually branching out. I mean, it takes some time, but
yeah,
we sell a lot. The biggest number of our heifers stay in Missouri. But we are sure branching out and getting more cattle out there in some different states.
Yeah. So working the surrounding areas.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
So are you doing 2 parts where you're contracting as the auctioneer, where you're contracting to different sell barns? And I know you're not really doing the sell barn like commercial cattle, but how does that auctioneer play into it besides you as a family?
So it's worked good for us. I've been able to keep the auction business separate from the farm. I mean, the knowledge of raising cattle my whole life, it plays really well into being able to go and serve as an auctioneer at these different auctions I sell. But at this time, I sell right around 30 cattle sales a year. Those would all be registered cattle sales a year in multiple states. Biggest majority of those would be in Missouri. But as I said, we are branching out in that aspect too. And it works good. The combination of having the farm and having the auction business, it's easy to keep separate. But as I said, the knowledge part of being able to raise these things and making our own breeding decisions. So I understand what those breeders that are raising the cattle, I understand what they're doing because they're doing the same thing I'm doing at home. They're making breeding decisions, what's going to suit their customer the best.
Right. So there's like an instant connection there. Like, hey, I can do this auction for you. I know your product and all of that.
Yeah. Yeah.
That
100%.
As an auctioneer, do you think that there's a difference between, like back to the, let's say the county sale barn that's just selling commercial cattle as the auctioneer for them and then the auctioneer for a purebred? Do you think, what's the differences between the two as an auctioneer?
There sure is a difference, I think. And, I've never been one to go and sell at a weekly auction. I think it would be fun. I wouldn't mind giving that a try sometime if that opportunity ever arose, but it's not in I guess that's not in my vision and not in my plans. But the biggest difference is, as we talked there some at auction school, and I go over with every class and session I help with, in the way we sell them, at a purebred sale, registered sales, we sell them by the head. And a lot of times these commercial sales, they're selling them, your weekly sales, they're selling them by the pound. Mm-hmm. Until you get into your special cow sales that they'll have. And obviously then they sell them by the head, but, and a lot of your bred cows are sold by the head, but, the biggest difference in the auctioneer part of it as a purebred livestock auctioneer, I'm expected to know about those cattle. Mm-hmm. I need to know their pedigrees and I need to know that operation. Where we sit, if you sit down and you're selling a weekly sale, those guys, they're getting cattle from multiple operations. Mm-hmm. Every set of cattle that comes through there, every draft comes through, they're from different operations. So they can't know all that. They can know some of them. Excuse me. They can know some of them, but they sure can't know them all. And I think that the advantage of the purebred side is we're going to know what that operation's doing. The mm-hmm. advantage of that commercial side is they're getting to see just tons of cattle on a weekly basis. And I have just the ultimate respect for those guys because I love the way they sound. Those guys that are good at that. I was
going to ask, are they faster? Do you think it's faster?
I don't know if it's faster by any means, mm-hmm. but just that cattle chant, that rhythmic cattle chant, like the guys out there, like Charlie Cummings, for instance. That guy, the way he sounds is just incredible. And I wish I could sound like that at times because that's just a cool chant. And, everybody's, the different ones out there, but I like the chant. I love that part of it. I have the ultimate respect for those guys for what they're able to do on a weekly basis and sitting in front of that crowd, dealing with those order buyers and the professionalism they go about doing that. It's ultimate respect.
Yeah. I just wish I could get a chant down, let alone like comparing myself to.
I think that's like after graduating auctioneer school, it's like part of the biggest deal is like, you come back and you're excited. Like I was telling Stacey on the way back, I was like, man, I want to have an auction now, even if a charity auction or something, because part of it is like you want to really try it in front of a public. There's a big difference, as you know, like practicing in front of the mirror or practicing on your own and then actually getting it in front of people and doing it. And to me, the gap between like my knowledge and ability and actually doing it seems so far because it's like I don't have a chant down, and I of course know enough to know that you got to have some kind your own kind of chant or something. Even if you went with the chant that they teach you in auction, there it just seems like the gap's so big, between me actually being able to do it.
Yeah, it can be, but the biggest thing, and I always try to mention this at each session too, is and I think, I don't know how many times I've said this, and it was told to me, is once you're graduate from auctioneer school, the best thing a person could do is go find something to sell. Mm-hmm. And as you said, I mean, if that's the church pie auction, if that's the charity auction for the basketball team that's going to state and in the town there, or whatever it might be, those kind of things are just so valuable in one, standing in front of a crowd, dealing with people, but also, you know, I mean, obviously you guys, it doesn't bother you all using a microphone, but how many people just even at auction school, when you guys were there, they were scared to death of that microphone. Yeah. They don't bite. I mean, I never have understood that. They don't bite, but yeah. But yeah, well, that's the biggest thing.
It's like also, I think it was just getting comfortable with the class, like, you know, day one, and you've got some people that hop up there and they actually know what they're doing. And then you have people like Burl and I, we hadn't looked at anything. We had practiced. we had listened to any of Mike's tongue twisters. And then you had people like Stacey Grubb that are in our office that, man, she killed it. She practiced every day. I'm like, ooh.
Yeah. Well, I can tell that practice is a big deal, you know, and
it's huge. It's huge. And still to this day, I'll say this, still to this day, when I'm getting ready to sell a sale, like I had a car auction this morning I'm in Kansas City right now. And had an auction this morning, have another one tonight, another one in the morning. And before I started this morning, it was I got there about a half hour early before we started, and I got everything set up that I needed to do. And I just walked back off by myself and just kind of warmed up a little bit, got my voice going, got my breathing going a little bit, because I mean, I got up, I drove 2.5 hours. I didn't talk to anybody on the phone the whole way up. So my voice, it was like fresh, but still it wasn't warmed up. I mean, if you watch an athlete before a game, they get out and warm up. And still to this day, I mean, at most of my auctions, I will go off by myself, warm up, just chant a little bit, maybe do some number drills, a few little tongue twisters. You know, the tongue twisters, everybody thinks, well, golly, I'm ready to get out of auction school, so I don't have to do these anymore. I found that they really do help, you know, get your mouth, get your tongue and all that kind of loosened up and ready to go. So I don't do it every time, but there's still a majority of the time that I still do warm up just to have that, be ready.
Yeah.
I wondered about for me, I can see, well, let me put it this way, is that I used to own a gym, right? And one of the things I noticed when I came back and started practicing, you know, you hear a lot about breathing, right? Well, man, I saw how important that breathing was. If you take something like you do the Betty Botter, that tongue twister, right? You have to really be careful about if you get to the point of you've like exhausted your air, well, then you're going to really shut down. And Mike kind of talked about this, but I really realized whether you're talking about working out or you're talking about auctioneer, I mean, there's a direct correlation between the two, because you have to be, number one, take that full breath, right? And really, they talk about from your diaphragm and be able to also don't let yourself completely get out of air. And, you know, maybe take a quick breath before that point. And so it's just phenomenal to me that breathing is such a big deal. And you hear about it in, like you mentioned, sports, you hear about it in different areas, how important breathing is. But I can really see how important it is with auctioneering.
Yeah.
Oh, it is. It's so important. And it's one of the easiest things to get in bad habits with. And I'll be the first to say I'm not a great breather. But, man, when you got a big sale, like I had 170 cars today, and we were done in right at 2 hours. And going at that tempo and that pace, I mean, you've got to know how to breathe, because if you're not breathing, your voice is going to be gone. And you don't want that.
I'm sure you're a professional, you've done this a while, but I'm sure you make mistakes, right? As you're like doing these cars, but does anybody even really notice? It's like you can make a mistake, it seems like, and you can kind of overcome it pretty quick.
Every day. I can give you multiple examples today. And it happened on like the same number today. We were going 38,800, asking 39,000. Yeah. And I would say 900 instead of asking 39,000. Happened like 3 or 4 times a day. But say it once, go on, fix it. Don't worry about it. Just keep going.
No one notices.
And no notice.
Was it a live in-person auction, or did you do it online?
Both. We had people in lane, and we had buyers on lane. We had very few in lane today. The one I sell tomorrow will have a lot more people in lane. But we had about 160 buyers online.
That auto auction is crazy when we went to that. And which I know those are professional buyers.
Yep.
But you guys go so fast. What are you selling a car like every 30 seconds?
Not quite, but yeah, at 40, 45. Yeah. I mean, but the way with what I was selling today, I was selling Ford factory cars, and they've got a price range they have to be within. So you can set those cars in 1,000 to 2,000 back and just start selling. People are going to bid. There's none of the, if they want 20,000 for it, I'm not asking 22, 21, 20, and then set it in at 18. I'm just setting it in at 18 or 19,000 and start chanting, and they start bidding. It makes a difference.
Are there any cars that go that are not sold?
Yes. Yeah. We would have had about
them.
Yep. We just pass them out. We'd have had about a 90% sale today. So, which is really, really good. Tomorrow, my sale that it'll probably be, I'm guessing we're usually right around 80%. So the cars that don't sell, we'll see them next week. There's a possibility that the seller will just take those on and do something else with them. Maybe go to another auction, maybe take them back to their lot, things of that nature.
So were you in multiple, was there multiple lanes like what we saw in Texas?
Yes. So today it was just 2 lanes today. It's a Ford factory sale. So it's a closed sale only to Ford dealers only.
Yeah.
So we had 2 lanes. Tomorrow here in Kansas City at the Manheim auction, we have 6 lanes. So there'll be 6 auctions going on at one time.
And do you ever find that hard to focus when there's that much going on?
No. And the reasoning, I mean, there is, and you guys probably saw, the walls come down part way. So they're petitioned. The noise, the volume, it stays in your lane pretty good. Yeah, you can hear the other lanes, but you don't pick up on that very much at all as an auctioneer. And even when I was working the ring doing that, you're just focused on what you're doing and you tune the rest of it out.
I'm really curious the kind of the journey from I believe you attended auctioneer school in Missouri, but how you graduated from auctioneer school. Did you have some, for example, when we were at the class, you can tell some of these guys worked at an auction, they worked at an auction house, they worked at a sale barn or wherever they worked. And those guys and maybe they were ringmen or whatever. So you could tell they had a higher level. They just around it every single week. Mm-hmm. And so then when they come into that situation with the class, they're already at this level. And so I'm curious, where was your level, first of all, when you graduated school, where was your level at? Had you been around it a bunch and you had kind of already played around with it, or was it fresh and new?
So going into auction school, I had never sold. I never sold and I never worked the ring at an auction. I had been around auctions my whole life. I'd grown up going to just multiple cattle sales every fall and spring. And then my dad and I and my grandparents, we would go to some farm auctions and things like that. And I always enjoyed them. And when I went to auction school, I had no intentions of being an auctioneer. I wanted to work the ring at registered cattle sales. I just loved that. I was 18 years old and that's what I wanted to do. And everybody I knew in the business had told me, well, if you want to do this, if you want to work the ring, you need to go to auction school. That way you've got a better understanding of the whole auction business. I honestly think the reason they told me that, they didn't think I'd spend the money to go. But after 4 or 5 of them told me that, the next week I booked school and 2 weeks later I was in. I was going. And I went to Missouri Auction School there in St. Louis. And I loved it. It was fun. I wore out the tapes. We had cassette tapes and I wore them out. I had a little S10 truck I was driving back then. I wore those tapes out in 2 weeks' time. They sent them to me and I just started listening and that's all I'd listen to. so I knew all the numbers. I knew all the tongue twisters, all the drills. I mean, I had all that down. I didn't have a chant whatsoever. They taught us the basic chant, and then they had to pull that out of me just to try to get me to go on and make my own chant. Finally, I did that, a few days in, and everything was going good. Graduated, went home, was just pumped and excited and ready to go to work. And I was fortunate enough to get to work the ring at a few cow sales that spring, which is exactly what I wanted to do. And got hooked up with 2 or 3 guys, and they let me go work. And I mean, I didn't know anything. All I knew, if someone put their hand in the air, just yell as loud as you could. And that's all I knew. Yeah. So that's what I did. But I enjoyed it. And I kept doing that. And then I did get hooked up with a couple local guys that they would let me tag along on some estate sales, and I'd get to sell, maybe half hour, maybe an hour, and sold a little weekly consignment junk auction. I mean, we'd sell more stuff for $2.50 to $7.50 than anything else. But I was able to do that, and that helped develop my chant. That helped me, want to keep selling and things like that. And got hooked up working more cow sales that fall. Got hired part-time at a car auction, working the ring. And again, still really wasn't worried about if I ever got to sell. I mean, I enjoyed selling the small stuff when I did, but a couple of years went by of working the ring at the car sales and the cattle sales. And I got the opportunity to start selling a little bit. And once I got that opportunity to start selling, it was over then. That's all I wanted to do. And I continued to work the ring for a good number of years. And still yet enjoy working the ring, but I've moved to where more or less right now, I don't work the ring very much. I mean, very rarely. I haven't worked the ring at a cattle sale in a number of years. Just focus on selling them, and it's fun. It's kind of a dream come true.
Go ahead.
Do you recommend that people go to ringman school as well?
So I've never been to one as far as an instructor or a student, either one. I've got I know 2 different gentlemen that each own a ringman school. I think they both do an excellent job with it. I think if it's a path that a person's really wanting to pursue and get some more technical training, I do think that would be good. For me, it never was something that was on my radar. And one of the gentlemen that owns one, I mean, he actually didn't live too far from me, but it's just never on my radar. So I didn't ever do that. But I guess I'm never opposed to more education if a person's willing to focus on that and really, make that a priority.
Yeah. I was curious if, people listening may not understand what we mean when we say chant, right? And so I would like to not only hear your explanation of it, but also your thoughts on it, like how to develop it. Kind of what you like, if you were working with me and say, okay, let's develop your chant, what would that look like? So if you could explain, first of all, what it means, and then to you, and then also kind of what's your thoughts on it.
Well, the chant is more or less what the public is hearing from the auctioneer. And a chant is nothing more than the number you have, the number you're asking, and filler words tied in there. And it becomes a rhythmic chant, and it gets some beat and some rhythm to it. And that's what makes it more enjoyable to listen to and easier. And it's easier to count with some filler words and some rhythm than it is just to count 1, 2, 3, 4. I mean, we've heard auctions, there's some big time auctions out there that that's all they do is 10,000, 20,000, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But in the world that I live in the livestock world and the car auction industry, I mean, there's no way I could have got through 170 cars in 2 hours today without a chant and without some rhythm. And it just is a more pleasing thing to the ear for people to listen to when there's that rhythm in there.
Yeah. Do you have any advice on like how to get your own chant or how to develop that?
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, the biggest thing, we all have learned that the basic chant is, I have a $1 bid, now two, will you give me two?
Mm-hmm.
And that's this, that is the simple, easy chant. And, as auctioneers, I think it's good every once in a while to go, hey, maybe I need to go back to a little bit of that and just to have that in your pocket, because there's times when you want to go fast, but sometimes you just need to back it down. But you can take that, I have a $1 bid, now two, will you give me two? And you can turn that into, I have a $1 bid, now two, will you give two? And you can take that, will you give, and make it a, would you give? And, little things like that. And the biggest thing is, everybody thinks, oh man, golly, auctioneers talk so fast. You don't have to. I mean, I can sit here and we could have an auction right here, and we could go as slow as we wanted, or we could go as fast. And, but developing people's own chant is something that I think is one of the fun things for people to be able to do, because I can't sound like you guys. You guys can't sound like me. I can't sound like my great friend Wade Cunningham that sells thoroughbred horses for Keeneland Sales.
Yeah.
I can't, and that's the thing. Every auctioneer is unique. And that's one thing I enjoy going to auction school and instructing and getting to hear and sit in on some of the different classes while we're there. And also like listening to Mike. I mean, Mike's chant's real smooth and very clear. And I enjoy picking up those little things like that, because as an auctioneer, they told me right off the bat, you need to be clear. Speed's one thing, but if you're not clear, I mean, if they're wondering what you're asking, they're not going to bid. But if we can be clear, they'll dang sure give more. And that's the idea. We want them to give all they can.
Yeah,
that makes sense.
I'll tell you, it really just popped in my head, but I'm telling you, there is a need, and I think it would be very popular to do like drills and through YouTube, because there is a guy that, it's funny because I like Googled auctioneer, and then there was this guy that popped up, and he had these drills and and by the way, he only has about 9 videos, something like that, and maybe not even 9. And the reason I think this is so important is because, so I'm talking to guys that's at the school, and they're like, oh yeah, I watched that guy too. And so several of us had watched that.
Yes.
So you could tell we had all kind of Googled the same thing, and we get this guy. And I like the guy, and the guy's good and gives you drills, and it was good practice. But then I started noticing something. It's been 3 years since this guy made a video.
Gone.
Do you remember what his name was?
Yeah,
Yes.
I can tell you it's called Auction Time. I think it's called
Auction Syndicate, I thought.
Auction Syndicate. Okay, I don't remember his name, but he's out of Chicago.
Auction Syndicate.
Let me tell you.
His name's Blake Ball.
Yes, that sounds right. But so let me tell you. So then I'm thinking, this guy hasn't made a video in 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
And I start looking at how many views he has on his video. And I'm like, oh my, we're talking about over 100,000. So a guy that made 6 to 9 videos, and he has that many views. And then I'm like, once I realized, okay, I've watched all the videos quite a few times, and yes, I still think they're great practice. And then I'm trying to find the next guy who can maybe help me with some practice. And I can't really find it. What I find is, I have this guy giving some advice, and it's all good stuff. But what I liked about him, he's like, there's 2 things I really liked about him. One, he's like, okay, we're going to practice this today, and and he'll repeat it 10 times, and you can practice it with them.
And they're quick. They're like 20-minute videos.
And then at the end, a few of his videos, which I really liked, and I think helped me, especially when because I was watching them during auctioneer school too, is he's like, we're going to pretend bid. So he has 2 people in the crowd that says, yeah, whatever. And so, but it helped me to have kind of quote live bids instead of like in the school where Mike's going, because that can get a little distracting. I found it easier when it was real than whenever it was just somebody saying it. So, but my point is there's this huge need. And I think that somebody can make videos and a little practice. And man, you're talking about a lot of people viewing your
Clint,
stuff.
That could be your next venture.
Clint, that's it.
I think my next venture is the podcast.
Tie it into your podcast. We need practice drills.
My next venture is sure enough going to be the podcast. So that gentleman you're speaking of, his name's Blake Ball.
Yeah,
he's actually a good friend of mine.
You tell him I said that.
Tell him to get back on YouTube.
I will. I have been telling him that he needs to get back doing those videos because there's lots of people that enjoy them. We actually work all the Mecum auctions together.
Yeah.
Blake is one of the bidder assistants and sells some at Mecum as well. So
you should ask him to look at his numbers, like when there's an auction academy going on, if there's a spike, about 3 times a year.
And what's crazy, I want you to think about it. If you are on your 6th or to 9th podcast, okay, and if you had that kind of views and listens, man, that thing you would have sponsorship, you'd have it all,
right?
Okay,
right.
So I think he's missing a great opportunity.
I'm gonna have to tell him you guys said this.
And the guy, of course, I don't know him, but I'm just saying from his videos, very likable.
Oh, yeah, great guy.
He almost seems patient, like as you watch the video, like he's patient with you, And so I think it's great. But I was like, a missed opportunity because I'm like, man, you keep putting out content, and you might no telling where that thing would go. I was kind of surprised by it.
So it is surprising that other people in the class were watching him too.
Yeah. Well, I'm happy to hear that. I'm excited to let him know.
Tell your buddy.
We finish up
on
here.
your podcast.
Give him a shout.
Yeah, please tell him we said that because I think that, man, if I was him, because I think we all we know how important social media is. We know how important it all is. And to be able to find kind of your way, it's tough. It's tough whether you're talking about, like me, I really grew a big following on TikTok for a long time there. But then now I'm struggling with content from it. And then we're trying, we have our podcast going on. So it's trying to get that content out. And if you actually see that, man, this is working. And I think that is working for him. So let's talk about your podcast. Tell me, number one, the name of it, and then tell me kind of what your goal is with the podcast. What are you guys discussing? I would like to hear more about that.
Yeah, you bet. Well, so I named it the Colonel Clint Show.
Yeah.
And we just released our first episode today, and been getting so far the texts and calls that I've gotten today have been all positive, but it's been a fun journey so far. I mean, you guys know, it's a lot of work. I didn't realize kind of what it took to do it and to try to do it the right way. My first episode, I went over and interviewed Colonel Hoover Case. Hoover was a mentor of mine when I got started in the auction business, and drove me. I got to go all over the country with him, working the ring at cattle sales, and his family, him and his dad, had a large real estate and auction business there in Marshfield, Missouri, where they still sell real estate today. He has since retired from the livestock auction world, but they still do have the real estate business. But first episode, we dove into his kind of the life and times of Hoover, and did a journey through time, more or less. And that's how we're going to focus a lot of the podcast. Is we're going to go, I like to listen to history. I like to learn things about people and about, where they came from. We're going to have another gentleman on next week on the episode, and kind of was from the same era Hoover was from. And he has made his career as a ring man and a livestock photographer. And he is well in the Livestock Marketeers Hall of Fame, just like Hoover. And so I'm starting out with those two gentlemen. And there's a lot of things that, some of us that are close friends with these guys, we know. But there's a lot of people out there, all they know is who they see sitting behind that microphone that day, or who they see in Don's case, standing out there working the ring, or they see his pictures in all these multiple catalogs. And so I want to give people a little insight into what their lives have been. We're also going to have a series on there, and we'll release it on Thursday. We're calling the Around the Ring series. And those are going to be shorter episodes, about from 10 to 20 minutes, somewhere in that range, around 15 minutes generally. And our first two shows we're releasing on that series is going to be the Crooked Creek Angus and I Sell Their Sale. It's coming up this coming Saturday. And we just highlight a number of the bulls and females that are in that sale. And then the second one will be Gilbert Cattle Company. And their sale's a week from this coming Saturday. And actually, my brother is the sale manager and auctioneer at that one. But just another avenue for farms and ranches and all these different operations to advertise their sales they have coming up and be able to get the word out to a little different audience that they normally wouldn't. Maybe that audience that, they might catch it on social media, might catch it in a magazine, but an audience that enjoys listening to things. And it's a short listen. When you think about 15 minutes, you can, turn that on while you're getting ready for work that day or on your drive to work or anything like that. So we're going to have that. We're also going to dive into a number of farms and ranches and learn the history about these farms and ranches and, how they came about. Are you the first generation to have these cattle, or is this a multi-generational farm? And so I'm really excited about it. We're going to be dropping a brand new episode every week. And then in the middle of the week, we'll be releasing those Around the Ring series as well.
That is cool.
That is cool. So again, tell everybody the name of the podcast.
It is the Colonel Clint Show, and that's COL, right, for short on Colonel.
Okay. So you guys make sure if you're listening, follow it and review it. Those things really help for sure. If you follow it and review it. And I know like a lot of my friends, they say, oh yeah, I've listened to your podcast, but then they didn't follow it and they didn't review it. And those things really tremendously help. So I do have I want to, kind of, get to the close of it, but part of it, I want to ask you this question. This is a question that came up during auctioneer school. It's, there's this idea from a lot of the public that auctioneering and auctions in general are a dying breed. And so I think that I would love to hear your take on that. I could see their thought process behind it, but then I got a new perspective whenever I went and listened to you guys at auctioneer school. So I'd love to hear your take on it.
That's actually something that gets brought up a decent bit. And, has the auction method passed its time? And for me, I don't think it has at all. For instance, we're going to talk about in the livestock world a little bit, 10, 11 years ago, the online sales really, really started picking up. And, any night you want to get online and go to SC online sales, there is, in the fall and September, there might be 20 auctions going on at once, all online. But some of those guys that have done that are going back now. They're going back to the live auction. I sold a sale this past fall. The gentleman had been doing online sales for a number of years, had live auctions years back, switched over to the online, and since has switched back. And he's now back having live auctions again. He feels he's able to interact with his customers more.
Yeah.
He feels like his cattle are bringing more. The biggest thing is I'm not in as an auctioneer. I'm not in the cattle business. I'm in the people business.
Right.
And when we're dealing with people in a one-on-one, like we are at an auction, that's what it's about. And it gives those producers the chance to really get to know their customer. And because you sell them, and we've sold cattle online and different things. You may never hear from them. If you don't reach out, you'll never hear from those guys a lot of times. But, where when they come to the auction or, if they buy something online, then those guys are reaching out and talking to them. It just makes all the difference. But I think it's true price discovery. I think people like the auction method. You can really find out, okay, if what I'm selling, we believe it's worth, let's say $1,500. We can get true price discovery and find out that day, well, it was only worth 12. Or we can have true price discovery and find out it was worth 2,000.
Right.
And I think I just truly believe it's the absolute best way for true price discovery and to get the most dollars out of the product.
I think there's also a need, and I hate to say it this way, but it's the best way I can think of. There's almost a need for education when it comes to auction, because like, for example, I know the first time I went to an auction, it can be very intimidating. It's like, how do I bid? And if I just scratch my ear, will that be counted as a bid? You know, there's all kinds of these thoughts. And I think that people are interested in it. But like we live in rural Oklahoma, and so auctions are a very much part of our lives. You know, farms are auctioned here quite frequently, and farm equipment. Stacey and I have been to horse auctions together, and cattle auction, of course. But if you're not from that environment, then it can be very intimidating. And yet, part of it is, I think, as an industry, in my opinion, that we want it to be an inviting situation where you can feel like I know what's going on and how I bid, and I think that's
a great video we need to do.
I really do think
really
that part of it. It's like, man, it's actually whenever I first, which I was young when I first went to my first auction, but I know as an adult, like. And every auctioneer does it a little bit different. Every auction is a little bit different, where, yes, if you literally maybe just raise your hand a little bit, they think you might be bidding, but there is, cards and whatever. And I think that education is part. Yeah. I think if there was that type of education out there, that also it really helps the industry as a whole, that this is not, because some people look at like a used car salesman who's just going up there and saying things they don't really understand, hoping you'll raise your hand on accident and then you buy this thing.
Yeah, it could be intimidating if you're not familiar with it.
I mean, for sure.
But I think that's which I didn't know until I had gone to the auction academy is the ringmen assist in that, where it's not just there's a bid where someone just did that.
And it's something I always touch on is the ringmen. I think they're so important to an auction.
Yeah.
And we talked about this on my podcast this week is, the auctioneer, and Hoover made this great point. The auctioneer might be the quarterback up there, but it is the whole team of that auction staff that is making that happen. You're just hearing from that auctioneer, but it is a full team. And those bidders assistants and ringmen, they are a key integral part of a successful auction.
And I can see that because the ones I've been to, especially charity ones, the ringmen are out there getting the people excited as well to increase their bid. But I do think you make a really good point, like just helping educate people. If you've never been to an auction, this is what you can expect. And of course, we're on the real estate side of it. You have to have 10% down and it can't be contingent on financing and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And one thing I would say, if people are nervous about, okay, there's an item I would like to go and purchase at this auction coming up. You see a sale bill and there's a car that you've always wanted. And that car is selling at this estate auction. Go find you another auction. And go watch that auction.
Yeah.
And
just watch.
Figure out what, if you've never been to one or if you feel that it can be intimidating, go watch, go hang out, go see how much fun an auction really is. And then go and buy that car at the next one. Because that's even fun. I mean, that's even more fun.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So, Clint, we always play a game toward the end of our podcast. It's called Overrated, Underrated, or Just Right. We didn't make it up, but we just like the idea. So, and I always catch Stacey off guard because she never plans. So,
that's how I roll. It's worked pretty good.
The first word, and we want you to participate if you have any thoughts. Okay. So the first, and when we talked about it a little bit, the first word is estate sales. Overrated, underrated, or just right?
I don't know, maybe a little overrated.
Yeah.
Sometimes the ones I've been to be frank, they're full of just shit.
Full of junk.
Yeah. Like kind of what you guys talked about at auction school. The family's taking all the good stuff.
Yeah.
And then the junk is what's left.
Yeah. So you say overrated.
Overrated. I just want to get to the house.
I mean, part of me feels like it's right borderline with a garage sale. But a garage sale, you actually get the good deals, and what you feel like you could get a deal. But the estate sale, I feel like everything's overpriced.
The first day, it's overpriced.
Yeah, it seems overpriced.
Yeah.
Clint, your thoughts?
What do you think?
I think it's actually a little of both. I think when there's a good estate sale, and man, I remember I was like 2 years out of auction school, and I went and helped at one. It was we went for like 7 hours that day.
7 hours.
And
wow.
we
How much
were
money did y'all
selling.
make?
Oh, I don't have any idea. I was just helping, and but like that day, that was just right. I mean, that's exactly what we needed. And I've helped with some, and it is exactly what you just said. It was junk. And
yes.
But we did it in order to sell the house and the farm that went with it. So I think there's a huge place for them, but it's not my jam. It's not my cup of tea for sure. But
it's going to be our jam.
Yeah,
I like going and watching some every once in a while. I'll find myself, in the summer when I'm not as busy with the cattle sales in the spring and fall. I'll slip over when I know they're going to be selling like a nice farm and property, and I'll make sure and get there in time to watch some of the estate stuff because I don't know. I like auctions. I'm an auction junkie, so I think they're good.
Yeah, good.
All right.
So the next one, and again, these are items we talked last time. I asked you about auctioneer in general, and you gave me your opinion. This time, I'd like to know about online auctions, just the online part of it. Overrated, underrated, or just
I
right?
feel like they're just right. United Country puts a lot of emphasis on online auctions, but I think like what you're talking about, it is about connecting with the people. So I think it's a fine line. You need to see what your product is. Not everything is an online auction.
Yeah, I agree. I think that it's funny because as many auctions as I've been to, I cannot tell you that I've been to or I've watched very many online auctions. I know that's where it's going, and you broaden it by having more people involved and all those things. But also I feel like that we have to, for me personally, like there's almost this element of like, we got to overcome the security of it, or feel like that I'm sight unseen. I mean, think about when you were talking about like, this is happening a lot in our area where somebody from California will buy property sight unseen. And it's a little bit baffling to us to say, man, it's scary. It's scary for us as realtors to say, man, you're just seeing maybe a FaceTime and a video of this house. You're just looking at disclosures and you're going to purchase this and you're going to be happy at the end of the sale. And I kind of worry about that aspect of it. It's like buying something sight unseen.
Yeah.
It's a little,
I think you really have to, whatever your,
so I'd say it's a little underrated, but it's definitely a little scary.
Yeah.
Your thoughts, Clint?
So I'm gonna step into the livestock world just a little bit, and I'm gonna say in the cattle industry they can be a little overrated, and the reason I say that is I think too many people think they can just clip a set of calves, have post it on whatever platform they want to post it on, whether that be SC or Breeders World, whatever that may be, and have a successful auction. So in that regard, I think it can be overrated because when it comes down to it, you still have to, as a producer, you still have to work and you still have to try to get those cattle sold. Where in a live auction, you're going to ensure you get those cattle sold, or you're going to ensure you work hard to get your customers ready to buy those cattle. And I think in the online area, it can be just, well, it's up there and there's people on there every night looking at those auctions. My cattle will do fine. So I think in that regard, they can be a little overrated.
In cattle, y'all brought it up. It was brought up in auctioneer school, but Superior, that thing happens. I mean, it's been happening and rolling where you're literally buying cattle online. It's definitely a huge deal.
Now with that those are live auctions that have online bidding. So I don't think those are just right. I think that is a great spot to be in. And the Superior, the Northern, those guys, I think those are just right. And, I don't sell. I was looking through the other day after I left auction school with you guys. I was looking through and going back. I'm like, did I sell any auctions this last year where we did not have internet bidding? And I didn't sell any. Every auction I sold, we have internet bidding. It's just it's become a must in our industry to have. We have it at the car auctions, the weekly wholesale auctions, and we have it at Meekum as well. And it is just a must.
You have to offer both.
Yeah, I see offering both is important. All right, the last one. This is a little bit more on the funny side. So miniature donkeys, are they overrated, underrated, or just right?
Underrated. I love them. I still want 2 of them.
Yeah.
I love them.
I kind of agree. It's funny because like I'm a horse guy. I've had lots of horses in the past. And my rule was if you can't ride them, you can't use them, then they shouldn't be there, kind of deal, because they're just feeding. Hay burners is what I would call it. But I would say donkeys, miniature donkeys. I think they're kind of cute. We have a miniature horse, by the way. And I mean, they're cute and fun. And anyway, your thoughts, Clint?
Well, I agree. I think you guys need 2, 3, 4.
Just 2. I just want 2.
Yeah, I think that'd be great. The other thing you might think about is like a Z-donk. Get you a zebra donkey cross, a Z-donk. That'd be good too.
Why not?
You will not believe this, Clint, but right behind us.
We have a zebra.
Right behind us.
There's a zebra.
There's a zebra. So I get this new horse.
You got the zebra. Now you need you just need the
we just
the
get the benefit of it.
We literally have a zebra right behind it. It's funny because I bought this horse at auction and I ride him around our pasture and stuff. Yeah, her. And then I'm going to take her down the road just to get her out of it. And she sees a zebra and the zebra comes running up like, I want to be this horse's best friend in the world. And my horse flips out over the zebra. Never seen a zebra before, I guess. So, well, Clint, how do people, we talked about your podcast, but how else could they get in touch with you if they wanted to connect with you either through social media or whatever way you choose? Will you just let everybody know how they can connect to you?
100%. You guys can find me on Facebook, Clint Hunter, and I live in Fairgrove, Missouri. Also on Instagram, it is COL_Clint. And feel free to Snapchat me as well. I'm pretty good at responding to that. So that's just COL Clint. So I'd love to hear from any of you. So.
Yeah, Clint, I can't tell you how much we appreciate you taking the time out. And, to us, it means a lot because, we've been working our podcast just because it's something that we enjoy and we enjoy having, interesting people on. And so for you saying yes right away and you being willing to do it pretty quick. Yeah. So thank you so much.
We appreciate it.
Well, you bet. I'm so happy to be able to jump on here this afternoon. And I just wish you guys luck with your new adventure here in the auction business.
We're excited.
I say go for it full bore and just have fun with it. And more importantly, go out and make a bunch of money with it. It's fun.
That's the goal.
Well, good luck to you too. And if we can ever do anything for you, please let us know. And thanks a lot for your time. Have a great day.
You guys have a wonderful day as well. Thanks.
You.